Now let's return to the future of 500 jobs in Peterborough, which is hanging in the balance. It's up in the air after the charity which runs the Key Theatre and the famous Bronze Age site of Flag Fen has handed its contract back to the City Council. Vivacity was set up a decade ago as a not-for-profit trust to run the city's leisure facilities. It says it's another victim of the coronavirus pandemic. Here's our political reporter, Ben Stevenson.
So Vivacity's 10-year reign looking after leisure and cultural services in Peterborough is coming to an end. Back in 2010, the trust was billed as a game changer for the city. The then deputy leader, Matthew Lee, said it would be able to increase revenue streams while protecting services. But the city's poor financial position and a perceived lack of dynamism from the management has led to very difficult times for the trust. Shows at the Key Theatre only a third full some nights. Library opening times have been reduced, and then services like the Bretton Water Park and hydrotherapy pool have been added to Vivacity's brief. And then came along the COVID-19 pandemic, a final blow that will see the council take over. The 500 employees of Vivacity await further news, and all eyes will be on what happens to Peterborough's impressive cultural portfolio. But given the tough financial situation facing Peterborough City Council, it's clear that some very tough decisions lay ahead for those at the Town Hall.
That's our political reporter, Ben Stevenson. And welcome to the show, John Holditch, who's the leader of Peterborough City Council. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Dottie.
Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. I wanted to start by talking about the 500 odd people who work for Vivacity. What's your message to them this morning?
Well, we're going to ask Vivacity for the staff details so that we can actually get in touch with them and talk to them ourselves, because we'd like their views on what services they do and what sort of staff their expertise there are, because we don't know, and I'm not going to speculate on jobs at this stage, because it wouldn't be fair to them until we've been able to talk to them. And we've got 90 days, of course, to do that, because it's a 90-day notice, and we will do it as sympathetically as we can.
Can you guarantee their jobs?
If I'm going to be totally honest, I don't know, but I wouldn't have thought so. There are services, we don't know what, we don't, and that's what Vivacity's trouble was. We don't know what can open. And if you've got the 2 metre distancing, Key Theatre, for instance, 360 people. Well, if you've got social distancing and can only seat 100 people, then it isn't worth opening. And it's the same with sports facilities. When the people coming back, in the budget that we were talking, we've been talking to Vivacity for a week or two. In their budget, they were budgeting only about 50% would come back into that sort of job. So, and you've got to build it again. So how long does it take? And what's the best way forward? And until we talk to the staff, we won't really know that.
What scale of job cuts could you be looking at?
Well, I hope not many, but you've got to look at this positive. It does actually give us an opportunity to look at what Vivacity did and what might the customer want when we come out of this lockdown.
OK. Well, along those lines, John, what kind of things are you looking at then as a possible reshaping of Peterborough's cultural landscape? Are you going to start charging more for events? Are you going to have to put up the memberships at the gyms? Are you going to have to start charging for library membership? What are you thinking of?
I have to say to you, Dottie, I only had the notice yesterday. You can't expect me to answer that on day one. We have been working with Vivacity. We do know, and I pay tribute to the Vivacity governors, because they have been getting it on a more financial stable footing. But with the virus coming along, it's cost them about 8 million in lost revenue. And of course, they don't know the way forward and what they can open. As I just said, we don't know how they can open and whether the services are going to lose money to start off with.
Funding from the City Council for Vivacity has been cut by, I believe, around 70% during the 10 years that it's been running these facilities. Do you feel at all responsible at Peterborough City Council for them going to the wall?
No, I don't, Dottie, to be perfectly honest. It was set up so they could attract money from outside where the council couldn't. They've been very successful at doing that. Currently, and I don't know whether people know this, but the City Council put in over £2 million into it, and we pay all their utility bills. What other sort of company would get that sort of support?
Okay. What kind of situation is this going to put your budget in then? Because your budget was already looking very challenging. You'd already gone to the government asking for more money, asking for loans and more time, etc., etc. What are you going to do?
Well, again, I heard a pretty awful interview earlier where saying we go for the government for more money, but everybody is. And we I ran a fairer funding campaign, which was joined by 50 other councils, and we got to government to look at that, and if they'd implemented it, and they were going to implement it, but I understand they're not going to implement it to 2023, we'd have been £11 million better off. But you're right. I mean, we can't afford to put a lot more money into it, and that's the honest answer, because we do have to balance looking after young people and older people and other services in the city that are dear to people's hearts.
It sounds like you're looking at cutting services, John. Like you're looking at, I don't know, selling the Lido, closing the Key Theatre.
I hope not. And it wouldn't be top of my list. The Key Theatre is a well-respected little theatre, and there are things we could do for the Key Theatre in terms of rowing in the embankment with it, so they could do events on the embankment using the Key Theatre. And we were looking at that sort of thing with Vivacity, because they felt it would be a good money spinner. But, the virus has knocked all that on the head. We were looking for concerts on the embankment this year. They ain't going to happen.
You referred just a moment ago, John, to that interview with Councillor Ansar Ali from the Labour group on Peterborough City Council. Another thing that he suggested was that you had mismanaged this whole situation, had mismanaged culture and leisure within Peterborough. What's your response to that?
I thought your question to him, Dottie, said everything. You asked him what he would do about it, and I'm afraid you didn't get an answer, because we have not mismanaged anything. And you look at our record in terms of the district auditor, every year we're getting exonerated as a good and well-run council.
You were clearly listening earlier on. What did you think of the Peterborough Civic Society's Toby Wood's fears that Peterborough is on its way to becoming a cultural grey zone?
I love Toby, I really do, and I think although he's on the political other side of the fence, I think we're good mates. But no, we don't have to let that happen. We have to balance, as I said, older people's care, young people's care, and all that sort of thing with the cultural effort. A city, it loses its culture, it loses its heart, and we're not going to let that happen.
I hear what you're saying, John, but when you put it like that, when you talk about the huge challenge that you face with adult social care, when you talk about the schools that you need to run, isn't it inevitable that culture just slips down the list? I'm not saying that's a good thing, but isn't it inevitable?
Well, you trust me, I will do what I can not let that happen. But we are in a situation where I have to look at the thing as a whole. And if that's the case, but you suggested. I mean, I don't know what their charging rate is, whether they can afford to charge a bit more for their leisure facilities, or whether we can get the grants coming in. I mean, we're always looking at it. I mean, I heard a suggestion that we were a city of culture. Now, we couldn't afford to do that because we'd had to raise 25 million. We did look at it. But, there are other grants, and there are already other leisure trusts that are coming in saying, can we help you and can we run some of your services? Now, I don't know whether they want paying to do that or whether they could do them commercially. It really is on day one an unfair question to ask.
Well, John, I wanted to talk a little bit about your kind of personal role in this, really, because, you'd never planned to still be in charge at Peterborough City Council, had you? This has come at a very difficult time. You were planning to resign from the role, and then along comes lockdown, along comes coronavirus and a global pandemic, and it means that here you are still in the role, and now you've got this massive item in your in tray. How do you feel about that situation?
Oh, when the tough get going, when the going gets tough, and I've had to administer over Peterborough City Council the loss of all our government grant, and we've done that in the main without cutting services. So probably you might say I'm the best man for the job at the moment, and that's why I agreed to stay on, because I thought my experience in times like this could be well used.
Are you daunted?
I've been around a long while, Dottie. I'm a glass full person. I really don't get daunted about these things. We've got a job to do and we've got to get on with it.
Okay. Well, John, we'll leave it on that note. Thank you very much for your time. John Holditch there, the Conservative leader of Peterborough City Council.